Hi, my name is William Whisenant, and I wanted to be able to present this pitch to you on an episode called The Cancer that we're doing for Longmire. And the premise for this is that when the bodies of two young men, or tied up bodies of two young men, are discovered along a riverbank, Walt finds himself once again at odds with the reservation police chief investigating Mexican drug cartels push into the area, an investigation that gets turned upside down by a crooked forest officer's involvement in the drug business. And so when the two bodies are discovered, Walt soon discovers that at least one of them may have ties to the reservation. And so he leans through Henry. He tries to contact and get some information from Matthias, the reservation police chief. You can tell there's a clear tension between the two men. Matthias says, yes, Freddie is the local young man that he's there, that they discovered, and that Freddie potentially does have ties to the Mexican drug cartel. He knows this because he actually ran the cartel off of reservation land when he discovered they had close to 10,000 marijuana plants growing on that land. And so Matthias is really put off by having not heard this information or that the cartel was actually in the area. But the information he uses anyway and talks to another local informant, and that informant tells him, yes, that Freddie was selling marijuana, but there's also another name involved, and it's El Lupo. And so Walt then takes this information and they continue to build on investigate the case a little bit further, and where they discover that Matthias actually used gang members to run the cartel off. And with this in mind, there's some suspicion in terms of Matthias's motives. And when when Walt discovers Freddie's car abandoned in a parking lot at the National Forest, they also find surveillance pictures of Matthias and gang members, which suggesting that there's a potential hit list for them. And so this discovery of this car leads them to begin to investigate into the woods of the forest to see if there's anything more to this. And this is where a gentleman named Eli, a forest officer, kind of comes in. At the same time, the audience gets to see that there's this mysterious man that kind of shows up in town and gets a hotel in the area. While they are in the woods looking around, they discover another grow and some fertilizer. The fertilizer is actually traceable, and they trace that fertilizer and the purchasing that in bulk to a gentleman named Vargas. Vargas admits, yes, that he's been buying fertilizer for El Lupo through Freddie, and that there is a spot in the woods that he makes a delivery. And when he says this, when he shares this, Henry actually takes some of the marijuana and goes off to talk to a local professor about the strain of marijuana and how they can know where it came from. Henry is in one direction. Vic and Walt and Eli are now back in the woods looking to kind of see where does this go. And the three of them actually split up and go to different directions. Walt and Eli in one direction, Vic in another direction. And so while they're going ahead to try and discover how big this grow is, Walt gets a phone call from Henry, and the call says that the marijuana plants are actually from a strain in Afghanistan. This is significant because just a little while earlier, Eli had admitted that he is actually back from Afghanistan and was frustrated having to fight in Afghanistan only to come home and have to deal with drugs in this area, this beautiful area of Wyoming. And so this is enough for Walt to be able to draw to a conclusion that Eli is El Lupo, and he confronts him. And when he does, he actually has to draw down on his gun because he can see Eli is up to something. Well, Eli admits that yes, he is El Lupo, that Freddie was his partner, and that the only reason that the other gentleman is dead is because the other gentleman, his name was Octavio, he actually tried to break into their business, his partnership with Freddie, he's from the cartel, and he wanted to take over their business, and Eli couldn't have it, so Octavio shot Freddie, and Eli shot Octavio. At the end of this thing, there's all of a sudden gunshots that ring out through the woods. Apparently, they were under surveillance by this mysterious man or someone, and so now Walt is faced with the choice to actually have to arm Eli to help fight this. So he gives Eli a gun. of course, Vic hears the gunshot, so she's running from the other side of the woods to try and be there at the same time to try and help fight. Well, Walt does eventually shoot the gunman, but in doing so, he leaves himself vulnerable, and Eli takes advantage of this and begins to draw down on Walt. Well, just in the nick of time, Vic actually makes it over there, and she actually draws down on him, forcing him to drop his gun, and Eli himself, and saving Walt's life. So that's our episode, and I'm definitely available to take questions if you have any. It's going to be a very exciting episode. I think you'll enjoy it from start to finish.